The bone set I usually use in the field, what that will be, so it's basically a kind of a flat set, really, sorry. And I'll have a bone, it'll be basically a femur bone or something like that, and you can pick those up. Well, if you trap on farmers' land, I mean, they've got piles of cows, dead cows and stuff, and just collect the bones. I come home with a whole buggy full of them sometimes. But I'll take and I'll drill a hole through it and put an anchor on it so nothing can take the bone away, because the last thing you want to do is get there and your trap is still there but your bone's missing. So I'll take and drill that hole, put an anchor on it, anchor that bone into the ground, and really what I do sometimes, and remember, make sure that this is legal in your state. This is legal in Missouri. Like, everything's legal in Missouri pretty much, so we're good. But sometimes I'll put that bone upright, and then it's not gonna. Sometimes I'll put it upright. Sometimes I'll put it like this, and either way, it's anchored into the ground, and then. Wow, this is actually good ground. I mean, compared to what I'm used to, there's no rocks this big. So a lot of times what I do is dig down deep enough to bury the whole chain, because I don't want to drag it out unless there's something up here that it may get entangled on, and then I'll drag it out to here. But mostly I'm burying it in the ground, and let me get it a little bit deeper here. So we'll bury it. Let me just set it real quick. Now, the other thing about setting your traps, when you set, and this goes for dukes or whatever, not the dogless obviously, and not MBs so much, but because they're kind of set. But if you get bridgers, make sure you tap that dog a little bit, and then bring your pan down. You want your pan and your trap to be flat, okay? You don't want, the last thing you want is to come to your trap and realize that your dog or your pan was up a little bit, and that animal approached it and pulled your pan up, and then they're going to take off. So make sure that your pan is completely flat, okay, with your trap, and then set it in. Now, a couple things else. If you're in an area that has a lot of rain, and sometimes in Missouri, not recently unfortunately, but sometimes we get a lot of rain and we have a lot of mud at trapping season. Hardly any at hay season, but we get a lot at trapping season. And one thing I do also when I get to these fields that have corn, like I'm doing a job for coon in the cornfields or whatever, grab up some old corn cobs, and you can actually stabilize your trap in the mud if you put corn cobs underneath it, okay? Just put a couple corn cobs in, smash it down, and then those jaws are rock solid that way. So that's one thing that I've learned also. So put your trap in, and can you believe this dirt, Dad? Whew. Look at that. Sometimes it's so bad there in Missouri with the rocks, and especially when it's frozen, I just bring buckets of dirt. I import the dirt. I have a big dirt pile that I make in the summertime, and then in the wintertime I cover it up, and then then in the wintertime I just bring a bucket of dirt with me. So cover up your trap real good, and you got your bone here. Now, typically what I'll do is my lure and my trap pan will be about my hand length like this from my pinky to my thumb. And so I look at that, and my pan's right there, and then I'll put a little shot of lure underneath the bone. And what I use in a bone set, like a bone set, they're thinking of food when they see a bone. So I'm looking for something that they're going to want. And in the wintertime, they like fat. They like a lot of high fat. And so I actually, I think it's in here. I actually have this thing, nope. Well, I didn't bring it, but it's kind of yellowy, and it's basically, if you catch a skunk and you put that skunk fat in a jar and let it sit for a while, it'll turn to liquid. And I call that, I put a couple things with it, but I call that skunk junk. And I just put a little skunk junk in there, and it's really cold. They're wanting that high fat content. So I put a little bit of that in there, and then I may put a little bit of curiosity kind of lure in there. And I don't want to try to be a salesperson or anything. I'm just going to tell you what I use. There's tons of good stuff out there, so you can pick whatever works for you. But I like Wayne Derrick's Pecos Valley. I put that as a curiosity / food along with my skunk junk. And I don't really put urine on that set. And that usually, with that there, that set will catch me coyotes and cats. So, well, it'll catch me possums too. But anything will catch you a possum. An empty trap will catch you a possum. But that's a big effective one. And I've caught a lot of cats in fields with that trap, with that set. So, and then again, if you want to put the bone up, and you put basically the elbow piece, I guess you would call it, down, you can put the lure right in between the two condyles there. Any questions on that set? That's a pretty simple bone set there. And just make sure if you use a bone that you anchor it to the ground, because if you've set about 50 traps or 100 traps or whatever, and then that bone's missing the next day, and there's snow on the ground, it's awful to try to find.